You know, the largest forest investment pool is climate asset management, set up between HSBC and Pollination, which is an Australian-based supernatural capital advisory boutique, doing a lot of work everywhere. And now we have a fund. And if you match expertise, experience with money, you will have something coming out which is quite big and hopeful. Lizanne, stage is for you. Please interview Martin and Christof. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Lizanne Atherly. I'm the founder of Minds the Capital, based in Zurich. And today we have the pleasure of Martin Berg, the head of climate impact strategies at Climate Asset Management, or Natural Capital Impact Strategies. Welcome, Martin.
Well, thank you very much. Hi, Lizanne. Really nice to be here.
Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how climate asset management came about? It's a bit of a special story.
Sure. So my name is Martin Berg. I'm working for Climate Asset Management, as you say, and I'm the head of Natural Capital Impact Strategy. Who are we? We are, as Mark already said, we are a joint venture between HSBC Asset Management and Pollination, specialist in investment and advisory firm on climate change. And what we're trying to do is to be the first asset management firm entirely focused on natural capital. And that's really new. I really like what Ronnie just said, saying, look, we need to focus on, this is the biggest trend, to focus on new investment ideas that really combine impact and return. And we believe natural capital is exactly that. And we have two shareholders that also believe that. And that's the whole premise of climate asset management.
And what exactly is natural capital for those of us who don't know? How do you make it investable?
Yeah, well, natural capital is really, natural capital is all around us, right? So nature is providing services for us humans for free for centuries. But what we really fail to do is to take this into account. So basically, rather than saying, wow, we actually have to value this, it's a positive externality, we should value that, we should actually put a price on it, and we should find ways to increase actually this natural capital. But rather, we're doing the opposite. We're actually destroying our nature, and thereby also a lot of the capital that it creates. I mean, a really simple example: think about bees and the service and pollination that they're providing to us. That's just one of them. But I think there's a silver lining here. I think lots of observers, but also in particular investors, are realizing that we have to focus on natural capital, and we'll come talk about this in a minute. Kind of what are the strategies are, but I think there's a huge recognition that natural capital, or nature in general, is not only important to solve the climate problem, but also it addresses the other part of the twin problem, which is the biodiversity loss. And I think companies are now realizing, oh, climate actually brings a lot of risk to me, and they're now looking at the next thing, and that's nature. There's also a lot of risk that is basically in supply chains, in portfolios that we haven't accounted for. And naturally, where's risk, people look for opportunity.
Speaking of opportunities, can you be more specific, if you can, about a part of the strategy, a project or an investment that you've done, very briefly, just so people can make it a bit tangible?
Sure. Look, firstly, maybe I step back a little bit. Natural capital, you can invest through various means, right? So it's an investment theme that you find in a lot of asset classes, whether you're in equities, whether you're in fixed income or in real assets. We are in real assets. So we really want to finance projects on the ground, and we are thinking through it through real asset strategies, both for institutional investors, but also for corporates. And I can maybe describe a little bit the two ideas that we are pursuing. The one is really targeted at the large-scale institutional investors, and our goal here is to say, there is an opportunity already to invest in natural capital, but they tend to be very small. What institutions need is large, scalable investment opportunities, and we're trying to build this for them through forestry and agriculture investments. And in very simple terms, is we're buying land, we're engaging in a landscape that change, we're improving that land, and thereby creating a much more sustainable return. And over time, also, we're building as many as possible revenue streams from natural capital. Think about carbon, think about biodiversity, think about water. There are things that you can do already today, and then there are others that probably will come available now with more pressure also on not only on climate, but also on biodiversity.
Thank you. Now, we are at NOAH today, one of the biggest tech conferences in the world. How do you incorporate technology in your strategies, if at all?
Yeah, and I think this is a revolution that's happening. So Ronnie really, I really like his presentation. Said, look, this is the next big trend for, like what tech was 40 years ago, and I think tech plays a huge role here now in the impact world to actually allow for this revolution. Because I think one of the challenges is now when you're saying about your nature, how do you actually measure now and prove that you have an improvement? So if you want to say on CO2, it's probably quite easy, right? We're all now understanding that the methodologies how to do that. But if you're thinking about how do we measure actually biodiversity loss, and how do I build a financing mechanism that can really demonstrate that there's a net positive change on biodiversity, this is where technology comes in. We have so many more ways now to measure. Think about AI, think about satellite technologies, think about LiDAR, think about so many ways how technology can now make it affordable to actually measure some of the impacts, which arguably were already there in many investment opportunities, but we could just not measure them. And that opens up now from a financing perspective, so many more opportunities.
What are some of the metrics that are important for climate asset management to measure before investing in a project?
So, well, I think firstly, Ronnie put it again, come back to his presentation, he put it really nicely. First, it has to work on both sides, right? So you can only be successful as an investor or as an asset manager when you deal with investors, when you're saying we create a return, but also for us, it's really important that we also can create an impact. So what we are working on is like hurdle rates, both from the return side, but also from the impact side. And then, so we're looking very closely, where's this parcel of land, or where's this project today? Where can we take it through an intervention, and how can we measure that? And this can be on carbon, this can be on water, this can be on biodiversity. There's so many things. This can be avoiding runoff of pesticides in the ocean that then has negative impacts on, for example, the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. There's so many ways you can look at this. And I'm going back to this whole technology aspect. This is where technology really helps.
And in terms of the future for natural capital, there are some challenges. What do you think is needed from the ecosystem to support its growth?
Well, look, of course there are challenges. It's extremely difficult still to measure natural capital. And I said the biggest problem is at the moment we don't really have a price on nature, which is a problem. So technology can help us to measure much better what we're actually achieving. And then I think the moment you do that, and we saw that on carbon, right? The moment it became clear to companies that they have to measure their carbon, the moment they're actually able to measure how much they rely on nature, how much they have an impact on nature, and how much they're profiting from nature. But the moment you have that, then you can actually saying, okay, now I can set myself targets. And that's really when things change. And it can be either through regulation. And I'm very certain now with the new task force on nature-related financial disclosures on the one hand side, but also with all the voluntary pressure. We see this already on the carbon side. How many companies are engaging now on voluntary action on that? I'm sure we will also see that a lot on nature, and in particular biodiversity. And that will really drive then more investment and more opportunity.
Thank you, Martin. We're almost out of time, but I really want to leave with an understanding of what type of investors do you think are important to help you move this forward?
We think both institutional investors, but also corporates. And the institutional investors, especially the ones that have very long-term views. So what we see is the ones that are really interested in the insurance companies, because they have long-term liabilities. They're realizing with more change in voluntary pressures, but also in the regulatory pressures, they will actually, they may have issues with some of the existing investments, and they're looking for something that actually can appreciate in value over time. And that's really what we try to create. And then on the corporate side, we're really trying to help those corporates that are saying, I want to do something either because I'm forced to by regulation, or I just want to do it because it's the right thing, or I'm anticipating that regulation is coming and I want to do now the right thing, not only on climate, but also on nature.
Exactly. A change in perspective is what we need. Thank you very much, Martin, for joining us today. I welcome Marco back to the stage for the next part. Thanks, Martin.